What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So we're out in the shop today. I've got a little bit of story to tell y'all. So if you've been watching the channel for a long time, you'll know that I bought the red Mahindra tractor here behind me about 4 years ago, something like that. I bought it used. It was on like a cotton gin, at a cotton gin, and it was operated by employees. It was pretty bad shape. When it got pretty well wore out, they traded it in to a John Deere dealer, and then I bought it from there and made repairs to it and whatever. And I've not used the PTO very much at all. I wound up buying the bush hog here that I've got hooked behind the other tractor over here about a year and a half after I bought this tractor here, and I ran it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours at one place and then 2 or 3 hours at another place. So I probably only run the bush hog about 7 hours or so, really bush hogging. And part of that time I didn't have it at full throttle. I only had it at, you know, whatever I thought I needed it at to cut. But I did notice a few things when I was doing that. I noticed that it seemed like it took a lot of horsepower to turn it, and whenever I would hit like an ant mound or something, because they had the tail wheels on the bush hog when I bought it set too low. I've since raised them up, but they had it set too low, and it would cut the ant mounts. It'd take it a while to spin back up, like the tractor was underpowered or whatever, and this tractor's actually got some fuel turned to it, more so than what it did from the factory. So it should be making pretty close to 100 horsepower. Well, I thought that was funny. And then also when you engage the PTO, if you engage it too quickly, it would kill the tractor. So I thought that was weird as well. And another thing, it just sounded like the bush hog was spinning really fast, but this bush hog is a faster gearbox speed than a lot of the others I looked at. I think the blade tip speed on that's supposed to be like 17,000 feet per minute. Anyway, so other than that, didn't think nothing of it. Like I say, hadn't used the thing a whole bunch. I did get in some really thick grass with it. One place I was mowing, I had one small section that grass was as tall as I was, over 6 feet tall. And I did wind the thing on up to PTO RPM, and it still looked like it was lacking power. I could only go in first gear with the tractor with the bush hog all the way down and cut, but it was leaving a really fine finish, like almost like a finish mower in this grass that was 6 foot tall. So I said, man, this is the best cutting bush hog I ever did see. Well, anyway, so the other day I had this tractor here. I was working on the scraper here. I had it hooked up, or trying to hook it up to make sure this thing was going to work and everything I'm doing with it. And anyway, I had it backed up there, and I noticed that the PTO speed sensor was unhooked because I seen a leak on the back of the tractor here. There was some oil running down, and if you see where the speed sensor is right here, and anyway, so I was investigating that right there. And so I reached down here, and it's got this rubber boot on it, and I pulled up on it, and it come unplugged. And I was like, well, that's weird. So anyway, I cleaned it up. I found out the oil leak was nothing more than what had dripped out of the remotes here on the rear and run down. But I said that shouldn't be unplugged. Well, I plugged it back in, and then I went and engaged the PTO. Well, on the dash on the tractor up here, it has a light that tells you where the PTO is engaged, and you probably can't see it on camera, but there's an indicator right here that says 1000 PTO. There's an indicator here that says 540 PTO. Well, whenever I plug that sensor back in and I engage the PTO here, it has an independent dry clutch PTO. So you got this lever here that you pull forward and you can feather it in, and then you hook it over like that. It's pretty simple. So anyway, when I engaged it, the 1000 light lit up, and I thought, that's weird. It's a 540 PTO, it had a 540 PTO shaft in it. And so on further investigation, whenever I feathered the clutch in and it almost was spinning down to a stop, I seen the 540 PTO light up for just like half a second. So that told me that the speed sensor was working, and I had an indication that something was wrong here. So I have one of those handheld tachometers that you put the reflective tape on right here, and I engaged the PTO, run it up to 2100 RPM that the tractor was running. It was showing like 960 PTO RPM. And the way this shaft works, you have a snap ring right here, and this shaft just goes in right here, 540, flip the shaft around like this, 1000, put snap ring on. So anyway, there's nothing on this that changes the gearing. That just changes the splines. So I got to looking into it further, and somebody has left some pieces out of there. Now, what pieces, I'm not 100% sure. I got on the parts diagram over there and I ordered some stuff, but I don't know if it's what I need or not. And I don't think I'm gonna be able to show you guys up in here real well what is in there. I will attempt to. If I can get a light here, I use my phone, I guess, and see if we can see up in there what's going on. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe that right there is picking up. Anyway, there's a little spring in there, as you see, and there's a piece of some kind of roll pin, and it's catching on one side of the spring, and the other side of the spring is twisted sideways, if you can pick that up there. So anyway, that is how that is going. I don't know if that roll pin went all the way through or exactly how that worked, but somebody has left some stuff out of there. So I tried to pull it up on a parts diagram, and the parts diagram does not add up with the way the thing actually looks. So I'll show you the parts that I ordered. I don't know that it's correct. So according to the diagram, you got this plunger thing here, and it looks like that this goes where that pin is, where the other spring's at. It pushes on that. And I took a pry bar and stuck down in there and pushed on that spring, and you can tell by pushing on the pry bar and it pushes on that spring that it's pushing another gear inside of there, and you can feel it engage when you spin that outer ring right there where the PTO shaft splines into. You can feel it disengage, you go across neutral, and then when you push further in on the pry bar, you can feel it engage into another gear, which is what gives you your 540. So somebody has changed that out before, had the PTO shaft out, and they have left some parts out. The guy at the Mahindra place told me that they had revised this, and it may be why it doesn't look like what's on the parts diagram. I'm not sure. But I ordered this spring and I ordered this plunger. There's also this little plunger here that has something to do with it. It's some kind of spacer. I'm not sure if that goes on this end of the spring or how that exactly works. There's also like a little groove right here, like it's an O-ring groove, and there's an O-ring in that picture on the diagram, but that O-ring does not fit that. So I'm unsure about that. The rest of it is just a light switch and a PTO shaft seal. So I'm unsure if this is what all I need or exactly what's going on with it here. So I guess we're going to find out together and see if we can get this thing to work. I don't know if this, just this piece will go in there far enough and fix it, or if we're going to have some other issues here. I don't know what the O-ring is for, unless that goes further down in there. It was hard to tell on the diagram exactly what was going on there. And see, as long as that spring is, I don't think there's any way that's going to work. In fact, this may be the spring that is actually already in there. Okay, I'm back with a little bit of light, and I still don't think that camera is going to pick up real well down in there. Let me get my phone out again and see if we can show it a little bit better. Maybe that's showing down in there. But anyway, there's a spring already down in there, and you got that roll pin. I'm thinking that spring may be the same spring that I bought. This kind of looks like it is, which does not make, I mean, it kind of makes sense, but it doesn't really make sense of how that plunger got the way it is, unless that plunger goes around the other way and the spring does not go on there. Because this thing is threaded right here like the spring went on it, so I just assumed that the spring threaded on there because that's kind of what it looked like. But that may not be the case. Alright, I got the spring off there. Anyway, this is a plunger. Maybe it goes in there like this, but why is that threaded right there? That makes no sense. By looking at the diagram, it almost looked like it just went in there and the PTO shaft went in behind it. And that may be the way it goes. I may have just ordered the spring for no reason, as well as this spacer may go on the opposite end of the spring. Hopefully it does, because it looks like you got to take everything apart to put that in there. But I don't know why that would be threaded right there. That doesn't make much sense to me. Maybe there's a tool to remove that, get threads on there. I have no idea. I don't know why there's an O-ring groove there, and the O-ring that you buy, it's in the diagram, is a lot bigger than what that is, as you see. So that doesn't make sense either. Well, I guess let's see if we can accomplish our goal. I guess let me crank the tractor up first and I can show you what it's doing with this out of there when I engage the PTO, and then we'll put this in there and we'll see if we get a different result. How about that? Alright, so I'm going to crank the tractor up, I'm going to engage the PTO, and I'm going to show you the dash up here where the 1000 light will light up, and then we'll put that plunger in there if I can figure out how, exactly how it goes there, and we'll see if that makes it go into 540. You see the 540 and 1000 on the self check, engaging the PTO. You see the 1000 light come on. So when you run it up to this mark right here, that's when you have the 1000. It's just telling you right there that you have it engaged in the 1000 setting. So whenever we put that plunger in there, it should do the same thing on the 540, at least hopefully. So I don't know much about this thing and how this exactly is supposed to go in there. As I say, I'm kind of guessing because the parts diagram is not very clear to me, and I don't have any kind of manual or anything that tells me. But I'm going to use this magnet here, and I'm going to stick this plunger in here and line it up with this dowel pin, because it looks like that's where that notch goes, and maybe that accomplishes something, maybe it does not. Either way, that's what we're going to try here. So that gives us a push down in there. I can feel it pushing the spring, so that's a good sign. And I can see it sticking out past flush down in here, and I can feel it going in when I push with a screwdriver. And this is what I was talking about, the turns right here. I'm out in the light. When you feel it, when you push in, you see it goes to neutral, and then if you push in further, it engages in another gear in there. So that may be all we needed was the plunger. I'm hoping it is. I don't understand why it's threaded the way it is, but I'm guessing it just pushes on the flat end of that shaft, because that's your 1000 in, and if you flip it around, you got a hole in this end, but I don't think that hole, oh, it does. It does. The threads will go inside the hole, I think. That gives you 1000, because the plunger threads does go in the hole, but somebody lost the plunger out of it, maybe being tight spring loaded, or maybe it's stuck in the end of here. They pulled it out, they lost it, because it's supposed to be, that's supposed to push on that gear in there, and all you should have to do is pull the snap ring that goes right here, and flips around. So when you want 540, you put this in there, then the flat end on this shaft goes in. It's supposed to push. You should be able to feel it cross neutral if it's going in far enough. Oh, there it went, cross neutral. And grab back in gear, but I don't know. That's a 1000 gear out here, right there. Goes to neutral. Engages in 540 gear. So that's how that works, I think. And hopefully there's not something else there I'm missing. As I say, I'm not sure what's going on. I don't think we're going to need that reflective tape on there anymore. I have to get that off of there. That's going to interfere with our PTO shaft hooking up. Anyway, I feel like if we put that in there and put our snap ring back in, we should have 540. I just hope that there's nothing missing and that gear is engaging far enough to not strip the teeth off. In other words, I hope it's not going halfway engaged and then when you use it, it's going to strip the teeth off or something. Because I don't know if there's anything else supposed to be in there. I don't think there is, because there's not really room enough for anything to go on there else. You see how the big hole is? It looks like that's supposed to push up in there flat, push against that. But that guy told me they revised that plunger and it had a different part number or something that was a little different. So I'm not sure. Anyway, let's see if we can get this up here. Figure out how to get the snap ring back in here. And hopefully that will solve our problems. And it won't be a problem anymore and I'll never have to use the 1000 setting again, because I don't have anything that's 1000. Looks like one of those snap rings that you take loose and bounces out across the yard and you never find it again. The cab tractors on these had a lever, I believe, in the cab, if I'm not mistaken. I think they had a lever on them that you could switch this. I don't know why they would make this here different where you had to pull the PTO shaft out. Somebody asked me on one of the videos a while back in the comments about if I ever had issues with this, or could I do a video or something on taking this out, and I told them I didn't really have a reason to. I've never had any issue or reason to mess with this, but now I do. So now they're getting their video, if they're still watching. Hopefully that was all there is to that. I just had no idea about that plunger, and I had no idea I was turning that bush hog that fast. But if you were wondering about that, so far I've not seen any damage to the bush hog. Look at this PTO shaft seal. It doesn't appear to be wet around there right now. I did order another seal just because I was ordering that, and it wasn't like 10 or 12 bucks. So I do have one if I need it. But this is a RCF 3696 bush hog, and as I say, it's already a high geared bush hog, and I've not used the thing enough, and I've never ran it before I got this tractor. When I first got it, I hooked it to this tractor here, and I didn't know how it sounded. I didn't know how it would do. I knew it was supposed to be a faster blade tip speed than some of the other bush hogs typically are. A lot of them are around 14,000 feet per minute blade tip speed. This one was like 17, I believe is what the specs say. So I didn't really know what to expect. I never thought to check it, and I never give it a whole lot of thought. I just thought, well, man, maybe it's the big gearbox is robbing a lot of power, or maybe it's just that high geared. Maybe the tractor's a little weak. I didn't really know what to expect, but it kind of makes sense now. everything's kind of coming together and it makes sense. But I don't think we've damaged anything because I've pulled that bush hog with that tractor there a little bit for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and didn't notice anything abnormal other than that tractor seems to handle it a lot better, which makes sense because it's turning 540 RPM like it should. Technically speaking, stock for stock, I think this tractor here is supposed to still be a little bit, this red tractor is supposed to be a little bit stronger, but this red tractor has also been turned up a little bit. That one should be stock, I think. So this one still should be a stronger tractor. So let's see what happens. All right, we got our check. Lights out. Let's engage the PTO. Ah, we got 540. I think we're in business. That may be the only thing I needed. I ordered those couple extra parts over there, but I just wasn't sure. I couldn't tell on the diagram. I thought that maybe that plunger may have been all I needed, but I could see that there was a spring there and some other little pieces. I just wasn't sure, so I ordered a few extra things. It wasn't but a few extra bucks or whatever, 8, 10, 12 bucks, whatever the heck it was, for the spring and the O-ring and that little spacer thing. It wasn't very much more money. So I figured with freight being what it is, I would go ahead and order that, and because I couldn't really tell what was missing out of there. I wasn't sure. But I think you got to take this whole rear end housing apart, I guess, to get into that. I guess it unbolts right here, maybe, or well, I'm not even sure. I know I pulled this here off to look in there to see if I could get in there anywhere closer to it, and all that does is get to your PTO shaft seals, what it seemed. So I'm not sure what you got to do to access the other part of it in there. I'm sure it's not fun. Maybe you got to pull the axles out and come in from the backside. I don't know. Anyway, I hope I don't need to know that. Or maybe you pull the top off here and go in down there. That's probably what you do. Anyway, I think we're good to go as long as that thing is engaging all the way in there like it's supposed to be, and we don't run into a situation where you know, it's only half engaged and it strips the teeth off of the gear or something like that. But I think we should be in good shape on it. Thing will probably feel like it has double the horsepower now, half the PTO RPM. I've never ran a 540 RPM implement at 1,000 RPMs before this, and I did not know I was doing it when I was doing this. But I can tell you, I guess the thing didn't blow up. If you're wondering about that, if you ever wondered what would happen if you accidentally ran a 540 RPM implement at 1,000, it still works, and I did have it wound up at 1,000 RPM for when I was cutting that 6 foot tall stuff. And as I say, I thought it was weird because, like, man, this is the cleanest cut I've ever seen a bush hog cut. I guess it makes sense because evidently the blades on this thing, there must have been about 30,000 feet per minute or something wound up like that, or a little over. I'm not sure, but it was cutting really good. And when I go across some sandy ground, I actually had to throttle it down because it was blowing so much sand out from under it. It's kind of like a zero turn mower when you go across sandy ground. It was blowing so much dirt up, so much suction, that it was blowing it all over and you couldn't breathe. So I'd actually throttle it down. But in the thick, heavy grass, I'd rip it back up. And man, that thing was cutting good. And now I know why, I suppose. But anyway, I guess we didn't damage it. So if you were wondering about that, that's what happens. You know, I wish I would have had some video of it. I actually do. If you go back on my channel, I think the video is titled I bought the baddest 8-foot rotary cutter or something like that. And I think the thumbnail is something other with me had it still loaded on the trailer. But if you go to that video, I think there's some footage of me getting it off of the trailer and actually hooking it up to the tractor and engaging the PTO and riveting it up in the shop here. And you can probably kind of tell that it's spinning pretty quick. And like I say, I never had one of these dual spindle bush hogs like this, and I knew that it was supposed to be a pretty fast gearbox on these. I just didn't know. So anyway, I guess we learned something. We learned something about the tractor. We learned that it don't blow up, at least I guess, because it still works fine. Probably not recommended. In fact, I know it's not recommended. But I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know you could do that on these, because I thought when you flip the shaft that there was a gear in there that lined up with another one, which I guess it is, but it uses a plunger on these. Some of them have a different a gear on the way the thing's made when you put it in there. But anyway, I guess it is what it is. I guess that's even more so a possibility on the newer tractors, that you can switch in the cab from 540 to 1000. I can see where that would be very easily doable. But I guess we didn't hurt anything. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.